Greetings, and welcome to the Spooky Coop. I'm Paul.
And I am Michelle. And we're at the Spooky Coop.
Welcome to the Spooky Coop. Hope you're not chicken. And welcome to the Spooky Coop. Here in our high-tech spooky studios located near the foothills of haunted New Hampshire, where background noise is experienced as moody ambiance rather than an unpleasant, distracting audiological cacophony of sound. This week, we present a story of the paranormal about a creature named Walter. So strap in, wonderful listeners. Are you ready? Here we go. This is the story of Walter. This is the story of Walter. You're not supposed to sell animals on Craigslist, but people do it anyway. This is a story of a parrot that was sold several times on Craigslist and eventually ended up in my small bird rehoming and rescue. The bird's name was Walter. He was an African gray parrot, about 30 years old. 30 years is not that old for an African gray parrot. They can live 60 or 70 years. Walter was owned by a woman who got him when she was in her 40s, and he was just a baby. She was his only owner. Unfortunately, she died during COVID, leaving Walter without a home. No one in her family wanted him, so her niece listed him on Craigslist. Nothing was really known about the woman who owned him, or about Walter, except his age and that he was in good health. The first people who took Walter had him for less than a month before Walter was back up on Craigslist. They said nothing was wrong with him, only saying they didn't have the time to spend on a parrot that they thought they would have. Walter went to a new home within days. The next people who took him only had him for less than a week and put him back up on Craigslist for free, saying Walter talked too much for them. The third people who adopted him ended up bringing him to my home when they decided they didn't want him. They knew I would take him in. She told me his name was Walter. She told me he was around 30 years old. Then she gave me his history on Craigslist that we already mentioned. She gave me his vet check papers from about 6 months ago that passed from person to person with him, and said she knew nothing else about him. I was suspicious why he was given up so quickly. I asked what she felt was wrong with him. I assured her I would take him regardless. I just wanted to know if it was something I needed to tell the vet when I brought him in for a check. She replied that there was nothing she knew. It was just that she didn't realize that parrots talk so much and so loud, and her neighbors were complaining. She just didn't want to put him on Craigslist again. I looked down at my desk to get a paper so I could ask her the question about his droppings and other general health questions. But when I looked up, she was already heading for the door. I had her come back to do the paperwork. She came back, but with a reluctant, almost apprehensive look in her face. She took the time to walk the long way around the table where Walter's carrier sat, so he wouldn't see her through the door. There really was something strange about this sweet gray bird that he could do that to her. Or was it that he just had terrible luck with people? I preferred to believe the latter. I looked him over as best as I could without taking him out of his carrier. I took him to my quarantine room and allowed him to walk into a free parrot-sized cage. I kept one there for just this type of occasion, whenever a new adoption came in. Most rescues are afraid to get out of a carrier, but Walter jumped right into the cage and seemed right at home. He seemed to be gentle. He could stay there until I could get him to a vet and get blood work done to be sure he was disease-free. I was surprised to see the woman was still there when I got back into the kitchen. She was busy filling out the surrender forms. I really hate to see people surrender their parrots when they are so well-tempered as Walter. I talked to her to see if rather than surrender Walter, I could help her work through the problem she's having with her bird, and maybe she would end up being happy with him. Because a lot of the time, it's more a person not understanding their bird than a bad bird causing issues. So a bit of learning on a person's part makes a world of change. As we talked, she admitted it wasn't a problem with her neighbors that was causing her to rehome Walter. Then she spun the most bizarre story I ever heard. She told me about how she got Walter from a person on Craigslist and was a bit nervous because the whole family was very quick to want to get rid of him for next to nothing. Cage, food, toys, and all. She couldn't believe her luck. She always wanted an African gray parrot. Walter laughed and waved his feet. He sang songs like Old MacDonald Had a Farm and made all the animal sounds. He even sang songs she liked by Fleetwood Mac and Stevie Nicks. She was in love and couldn't imagine why anyone wouldn't want the bird. She said the woman told her the family worked too much and felt guilty leaving him alone all day. She went on to say she thought she would have to beg them, and kept explaining that she and Walter would be a perfect match by listing the ways they would get along. She said it hit her at one point that they really didn't seem to be even listening. As she talked, they were packing up his stuff. She felt, at the time, they must have felt she was the right person for him. In hindsight, she now knows how strange they were behaving when they were practically pushing her out the door with him in his cage, toys, and food. They never even asked her name or her experience with parrots. She said Walter was kind of quiet all day. I told her that would be expected, that she is giving him up because he's shy. Don't worry. He's been through a lot and needs time to warm up. I started to give her some tips on how to help him become more comfortable in his new home, and she cut me off. She insisted I could never imagine what was wrong with Walter, and when she told me, frankly, she was right. She told me he wasn't talking at all in the daytime, but he would be up all night talking in what she called a weird, creepy voice. Not parrot-like. It was a croaky, almost sinister-sounding voice. She said it was evil. I said nothing. I think I was too confused by what she was claiming to speak. She must have taken my silence as disbelief, and rightly so, and repeated her claims slower and with more intensity, continuing with some of what she says was straight from hell. The woman claimed he said words she didn't understand. She thought it might be Latin. Between his Latin chants, he prayed to Satan in English. She made the sign of the cross and cleared her throat. Fear flared in her eyes. Then, shaking, she looked like she was going to quote, Satan's devil, Parrot Walter, but thought better of an exact quote, lest her soul end up forever in the burning fires of hell with Walter. He'd invoked the name of Lucifer, she exclaimed, and beseeched Lucifer to put his first owner's soul, I won't repeat her name, forever damned name, into the body of his current owner. That's me, she cried. She jumped in my face and made the sign of the cross again. She was now walking in nervous circles around the room, going on about how Walter repeated this over and over all night. He barely slept. She put several crucifixes in his cage. He chewed them up, even the silver one. She even had her priest bless him. The priest was dressed in regular clothing, but as soon as the priest left, Walter said, Bye, Father. How did he know, she ranted. She was in overdrive. I felt bad for the woman and hoped she would someday find the help she needed. More so, I felt relieved that an innocent parrot like Walter was soon to be far from her and her crazy ideas. Little did I know. She slammed a bag of sunflower seeds on the table and announced, "That's why I'm giving him to you. I just can't list him on Craigslist again. He's cursed. Only a professional like you could figure out if Walter can be trained to stop his hellish prayers to the devil, or if he needs to go to the devil himself. I don't know what to do with him, and I don't want to know. All I know is I cannot have him invoking demons in my home." She pulled a large silver and gold crucifix out and told me it used to be her father's. She said she had it blessed by her priest the night before, when she was sure I was going to take in Walter. Originally, her idea was to give it to me as a thank you gift, hoping I would wear it. But now that she told me all about the cursed ways of Walter's evil intention to steal my body for his late master and let Lucifer take my soul, she begged me to wear it all the time. I'm not strictly religious, and not at all Catholic, but not wanting to get the woman all riled up again, I took her gift. I was glad I was able to slip it into her purse before she left. In the end, I did take Walter, and every night now for the 2 years or so I've had him, his nighttime chanting has not stopped. I've done everything I can think of. I've played jungle bird sounds, audiobooks, repeated phrases, music of different types through the nights for months. Nothing has changed. I've kept him away from the flock population lest I have a whole flock of satanic birds. I'm joking, of course. So far, from what I can tell you, there is no sign of Lucifer or of the first woman that owned him coming back from the dead. But then again, I didn't really believe she would, did I? The only peculiar thing that's happened is that my security system has from time to time recorded me sleepwalking, something I've never done before. One time while I was walking in my sleep, I actually leaned into one of the cameras and winked. It was odd, because even though it was my face, it didn't really look like me. Oh my God! Well, dear listeners, what do you think of the story of Walter? Fact or fiction? You decide. As you ponder this strange bird brain saga, we hope you have a wonderful week full of wonder and hope. Until next time, when we see you in the spooky coop.